Volume 1 of the Metal Gear Solid HD collection is a bit of a problem child on all platforms. When it launched, it was only 720p across Switch 1 and PS5 and Series X as well. And that's because it's literally a direct port of the HD collection from 360 and PlayStation 3, right down to the 2012 copyright on the title screen. The only difference is there's no Peace Walker, but instead you've got Metal Gear Solid 1. Now, the PS5 and Series X versions did get some updates over the years, including a higher resolution mode. You can make the game render from 720p to 1080p, and there's also some options for upscaling as well. And all of this has found its way into the Switch 2 update, but that's not really the focus of this video, because while that's cool, Switch 1 had far more dire problems. So these are ports of Xbox 360 games, which in turn are ports of PlayStation 2 games. And pretty much every 360 game on the Switch has a benefit, like Red Dead Redemption and Dark Souls and BioShock. They run better at a higher resolution than the original 360 versions. And that is doubly a problem on Metal Gear Solid, because not only does it not run better than 360, it doesn't run better than PlayStation 2. Both MGS2 and MGS3 are capped at 30 frames per second, a half cut from 360, and in Metal Gear Solid 2's case, a half cut from PlayStation 2. MGS2 has always been a 60 frames per second game. In the cutscenes, in the gameplay, it's been the case on every single platform, apart from PlayStation Vita, where in that case it was 60 FPS indoors and 30 FPS outdoors. But Switch 1 doesn't even surpass Vita. It's just 30 FPS all the time. And with that, there were also frame pacing problems in the original patch, which were largely resolved, but frame drops do still occur on Switch 1 at 30 FPS, and we're talking as low as 20 sometimes. It is worth noting that in some cutscenes, the frame rate cap does change by design at times. Sometimes it goes from 30 to 15 or 20, just to produce certain effects like slow motion, so that's still intact across every single version. So even though Switch 2 is now at 60 FPS, you are going to see some stylistic frame drops which are intentional, just because that's how the game works. But yeah, Switch 2 does now pull off 60 frames per second, and it is a game changer. Metal Gear Solid 2 particularly was never designed for 30 FPS, and there are many effects like motion blur which look really poor on Switch 1 because they're meant to be running at double that rate, and so to see them at full clarity just makes this fully worth it now. Beforehand, I would have said avoid at all cost. The Switch 1 version is a disaster port, somehow being worse than a PlayStation 2 game from 20 years ago despite just being the same game in HD. But now, even when playing in the 1080p of the Series X and PS5 update, the game does hold 60 FPS the vast majority of the time. I did note though a couple of frame drops, very quick ones, but every now and then it tends to drop maybe 5 frames. At random intervals. It's hard to say exactly why this happens, because sometimes things are going on and sometimes they're not. It's not really that noticeable though, because they last just a millisecond and then they're gone. And this is the case in both the 720p and 1080p modes. It didn't seem to make a difference, but it's not something I really noticed in gameplay, just when using the tools to check the frame rate. There of course have been many disastrous Switch 1 ports over the years. We're talking the original version of ARC, we're talking Mortal Kombat 1, which was just too ambitious. But a game like Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3, I think are the most disastrous of them all. Because while they look fine on Switch 1, it is just unacceptable for a PlayStation 2 port to run this badly. Both Metal Gear Solid HD and the Kingdom Hearts HD Cloud versions are some of the most baffling Switch games of them all. It's just crazy that they release like this, and even with all the added horsepower of Switch 2, it's still not quite as perfect as it could be. They could definitely lock this at a full 60 all the time, but it is still largely very good, and finally better than the 360 version, which this version is based off on. It's a whole mess. But there's one more update to look at, because we also have Metal Gear Solid 1 with an update. This still runs at the same cap as it did on PlayStation, so no frame rate boost here. But there's now an option to run at a higher resolution if you want to. And what's cool about this is not only are the visuals running at a higher internal resolution, but so is the text. All the text in the game is now in HD, which is very nice. I would have liked an option to mix and match the original visuals and the new text, but for some reason you can't toggle that on, which is peculiar, but it's nice to have options. Personally, I think the original standard definition look just looks better with the lower poly models, and when you make them all clean in HD, it looks a little bit out of whack in my opinion, but I know some people have different preferences, so go for it if this pleases you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching everybody, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
This is where I belong, with the unit. I have nowhere else to go. Father, I want to stay and fight.
There is no choice to make here, Olga. Need I remind you that you are carrying my grandchild? You will be on the helicopter out of here now.
Damn it. I've been with the unit since I was born. I grew up on the battlefield. Conflict and victory were my parents. The unit is my life, my family. We've shared I have no one, nothing except the unit. Nothing else matters to me.